Blog Talk Radio.
Archangels, ghosts, and Bigfoot, oh my. It's just another night for Supernatural Girls. Real stories, real answers to life's biggest supernatural mysteries. And now for another exciting interview with paranormal experts from this world and others. Here's your host, paranormal researcher Patricia Baker, on the one, the only Supernatural Girls.
Welcome, everyone, to another exciting episode of Supernatural Girls Radio. I'm your host, Patricia Baker. It is November 22nd, 2023, the night before Thanksgiving. I hope everybody's home relaxing in front of a warm fire if it's cool where you are. And maybe you're even making pies. That's usually what I do the night before Thanksgiving. Well, PK, how are you doing tonight?
Absolutely fabulous. I just left participating in a wedding, and it feels good to see two very happy people start a new beginning of their world.
That's great.
Yeah.
And
We
you
overdid.
officiated, right? You officiated
Yes,
at this wedding? Oh, my gosh.
I did. Haven't done it in 26 years.
Well, then they're off to a great start, that's for sure. Wow.
Well,
excellent.
I'd like to think so. If not,
So
I
joyous.
can turn in my certificate.
Yeah.
But it's a beautiful day, beautiful weather for a change. It's perfect.
Oh, that's
I'm
so
good.
wonderful. Good omens.
Definitely. And
So what do you have for us? What do we got going on? We've got
we have to
the
pay
late
attention
part
to
of
one
November.
thing. What's going
Yeah.
on? This is the time of ending old things. Take whatever you don't want to tote with you any longer and release it and let it go. Because this is the best time. What we've been carrying throughout this year or some years before. Take a look at what it is you no longer want to have available to pull you down. There's so many nice things that we have available to us, and we keep taking these little shortcuts. But think in terms, this is a month of ending old issues. Dwell on what you want to. Think of putting it in the backpack. As you go out the door, drive down the road, drop the window, throw it out, and let it go once and for all. We've got so many new things coming and so much is going to be available to us. But if we keep dragging this old stuff with us, we're never going to step out into the light. And if you take a look at what's been going on all year, it's been building things up. So this is the point that we no longer have to hold on to what was. Clear the air. Take that deep breath. Let yourself be cleansed and cleared so that you can start working on what's going to really be the best of what's coming, starting the 1st of next month. That's not very far away. And we've hung on to so many old things, and we keep trying to build up something new. It's not going to happen if we keep letting ourselves be pulled down. So from now on, from the rest of this year, think totally in terms of building up, going forward, releasing, letting go, and having the best opportunities for fortune, for family, for relationships. Think only in the positive. I always tell my clients, as you drive down the road with this big bag next to you, drop the window and visualize yourself throwing out the window of this bag. You don't care where it goes. Just quit taking it home with you. I think it'll make us all happier.
God, yes. No, it's a good thought. I like it. And, yeah, it's a great way to think as we come to the end of the year, because that's not very far away at all, the way time is moving so quickly. It is coming up fast. So thank you for sharing all of that. And tonight we have a great guest, and we've been wanting to get this lady on the show. Yes, and she's got a new book. She's an amazing tarot reader, but she has another way of presenting work with tarot that we're very excited to hear about. So our guest tonight is Julia Gordon-Bramer. Now, Julia is a professional tarot card reader, award-winning writer, and poet. She's a Sylvia Plath Scholar, former professor for the graduate writing program at Lindenwood University, and host of the radio show, videocast, podcast, Mystic Fix. She has appeared on MTV, Nickelodeon, and many television and radio shows to share her tarot talents and scholarship. Recognized as one of St. Louis's top 10 psychics, Psychic St. Louis, and St. Louis Best Fortune Teller, CBS Radio. She is the author of several books, including Fixed Stars Govern a Life, Decoding Sylvia Plath. Now, she lives in St. Louis, Missouri, and she's got a new book out, and it's called Tarot Life Lessons, Living Wisdom from the Major Arcana. Well, Julia, welcome to the show.
Hi. Thank you. Nice to be here.
Oh, it's great to have you. Now,
Definitely.
what got you into tarot? How did this become your passion?
Oh, goodness. So I found my first deck of tarot cards at age 16. I wrote about this story in Tarot Life Lessons. It's actually the very first story matched with the Fool card. I match every story in the book. And I should say, right off the bat, these are stories in my book. These are real-life client stories. This is not another tarot book on how to read tarot. It's more like the life of a professional tarot card reader and the situations and people that I have come across and that sort of thing. So I can talk more about that. But my story is matched with the Fool card. So it is chapter 0 because the Fool card is the number 0. And I talk about wandering into a mall on a hot summer day and just needing a place to cool off. And I was about 16, and this was in the 1970s. And I went into a magic shop. And, you know, magic shops are not, of the 70s, they weren't like these new age shops we have today where we can buy crystals and books and Palo Santo and sage. You know, it's more, they were gag gifts, and they were tricks, like, you know, that magicians would use, or rabbits out of hats and sponge balls and those sort of things. And I always found them very interesting as a kid, and I was wandering through this one, and this very worldly young woman, she was maybe 4 or 5 years older than me, but she seemed to have all the wisdom of the universe, you know, and she motioned to me, and she said, "Do you want to see some real magic?" And she pulled out this deck of tarot cards. And I was in love from the get-go. I just thought they were the coolest, most beautiful things I'd ever seen. Put down all my babysitting money on the spot and brought them home. And spent the rest of my life learning about tarot and all of the things tarot embodies, because tarot embodies a lot of other occult sciences. It's in line. It's under the umbrella of the Kabbalah tree of life, and all the tarot cards fit on different paths and stations of the Kabbalah. So I've spent decades studying Kabbalah, studying astrology and astronomy, which are part of the tarot, studying mythology, which is part of it, numerology, which is part of it. There's many different occult sciences sort of woven into these pictures and symbols on a tarot card.
Mm-hmm. Well, how long did it take you? I know it took you years to become a master at this, but how long did it take you before you felt comfortable with the deck of cards that you had and you felt you could read from them?
Yeah, well, you know, I got to say, because I was a kid, I was just comfortable from the get-go, you know, and I had my little white booklet that comes in the box, you know, we in the tarot circles call them LWBs, and I learned from that, and actually believe that that is maybe the best way to learn, because instead of having these long descriptions of what each card can mean, it just has a few short words. And so really it trained me right away to trust on my intuition. I got the general gist of a card, but then my intuition led me to going deeper. And that was around the same time in my life that I wrote in the book. I'm not sure which happened first, whether it was tarot or my psychic abilities kind of coming to fruition, but that was around the same time in my life that I began to have premonitions. And so I wrote about my first premonition that I'll never forget. I was driving my little sister to the mall. I had my brand new driver's license, and I had this daydream, sort of a waking vision of a crow on the side of the road with a broken wing. And I remember thinking, why did I think of that? And then about 5 minutes later, I saw exactly what I had dreamed or visioned. And I remember just being stunned. And these things began to happen more and more frequently as I got older, sometimes in my actual sleeping dreams, but very often in what I'd call daydreams or visions. And it was just, to me, I don't think I had any control over it. I couldn't summon it at will back then, but I think it was sort of my psychic muscles flexing and developing. And it's my belief, I think we're all psychic to certain degrees, and it's teaching ourselves to pay attention. I think all children are crazy magical. And it's not until we get to be more self-conscious, usually around our teens, that we sort of shut that down. And, of course, our family and social circumstances, can affect how young we close down. But it doesn't make sense to many people, and so there is a self-consciousness about it. For me, I guess I embraced being the weird kid a little bit, and I had my deck of cards, and I read for my friends, and I just used my little booklet for many years, and that was good enough. And I was astounding my friends even at a young age. So obviously it doesn't look real professional to have to refer to paperwork. And and I dropped it much later in life, but it was a great way to learn. And I have I don't poo-poo if somebody wants to go back and forth between a guidebook and the cards. I think that's great, and it's a great way to learn. The only thing that I would tell you about that is that when we're intuition. Really, the biggest enemy of intuition is being afraid to be wrong. And so when you've got the guidebook, you're sort of like always right, but you're not really using your intuition with the guidebook.
Right, exactly.
So it's a way to learn the basic meanings, but it isn't leaning into your real powers here.
Do you feel the cards speak to you? Because it's much more than interpretation at the level that you're at.
Yeah, I wouldn't say the cards speak to me. I mean, they all have a lot of wisdom embodied within them. But I would say, I believe it's spirit. It's whether you want to call it God or source or energy. When I sit down with a new client, I explain to them that I can read their cards because we're connected. I believe we're connected just by being alive, and I call that life force God. I don't tell people how to do God, what to call God. That's your business. You could just assume say Gaia or the force or goddess or, I don't think it matters. I don't think God has an ego to care about these things. And and so I just believe I'm channeling something higher.
Mhm. Oh, that's wonderful. Now, did this run in your family? Other generations in your family, did they have the gift?
If it did, they sure didn't tell me about it. My grandmother Sylvia, on my dad's side, his mother, she used to say that she had an intuition, but she didn't have tarot cards or anything like that. So as far as I know, I'm the first one in the family to use any sort of, certainly to be a professional in any sort of supernatural or occult science. And I don't know anyone in my family who used tarot or had premonitions or any of that.
Okay, so you are the first. So don't let people, if people feel like, oh, well, I couldn't have it because I'm not born into it, it's got to start somewhere. Exactly, it does. I mean, there are some people that have a long lineage with all kinds of things, but there are others like you that are the first. So good for you.
Yeah.
And they didn't try to discourage you?
No, I had a youth that was a little bit different, and honestly, I was doing my own thing, and people really didn't know much about what I was doing as a teenager. My mother had, my father had left our family, and my mother was raising 2 little babies and working a full-time job, and had her mother at home, and I was gone at a really young age. So there was, I dropped in. I said hi now and then, but no, it really wasn't like that, where they knew what I was even doing, much less studying or reading. And I don't think they would have minded. I do talk about in the book, I grew up in the Episcopal Church, and I really got a lot of my spiritual background from that church, St. James in Potomac, Maryland. And and it was a very charismatic church, which I didn't know, it was normal to me, but I didn't know until I was an adult, really, and talking to other people, that it was very unusual for an Episcopal church to be teaching me things like meditation and automatic writing, and there were people there who spoke in tongues. And so it was very spiritual. And I think it was an excellent training ground for me, and I was big into Bible study, honestly still am. I think there's so much wisdom in the Bible. I think people grossly misinterpret the Bible and take it for literal truth, all the time, when it's really meant to be symbolic and metaphor, like so much of spirituality. But it was a great part of my life and an important part of my life. And as I got older, I got maybe into some of the other things. I began to study Buddhism and the Tao, and today I'm a teacher of A Course in Miracles, and I love really all religions. When I was a professor at Lindenwood, I taught humanities for a while, and I really enjoyed all of the religious sections there. And I could just study that forever, because I feel like when you study religion, you really learn how much more alike we all are, and our roots kind of all coming, from similar places. And, at least for the major religions, they all stem from, this Abrahamic kind of root, and there's a lot of beauty to be found in all of them. And I think people pick, their favorite brand, and so which has the ceremonies and the rituals that feel comfortable and speak to them, and and even some dogma that feels more in line with who they are. But I'm sort of a cafeteria plan as far as religion goes. And
I like that. That's great.
But I don't knock any of it. I really enjoy the subject and philosophy as well, and I could speak on hours and hours on it. And so I won't take you too tangentially in that direction. But yeah. So it's all formed me, and it's all fed into my tarot. And I really think that all of that wisdom has made me a different kind of a tarot card reader, because I can look at a card and the symbolism, and I can be reminded of a saying by Buddha, or a teaching by A Course in Miracles, or something from the Bible, and I'll pull it all out. And my clients usually appreciate it, and it just helps to give sort of a real-world application, which, getting back to my book, Tarot Life Lessons, it's all in there. When I sat down to write this book, which first of all came out of my journals, the working title was The Tarot Diaries, because I wrote it initially. I recorded each story just for myself, and I really didn't think that anything was going to happen with it. But I wanted to remember which cards I pulled for certain situations and how I was feeling and how I processed, because I'm learning and growing along with my clients. And, I stress to potential readers, I am not presenting myself as a guru sitting on the mountaintop giving you all the answers to life. I'm showing myself as very much a human being with my insecurities and my ego sometimes, and my fears sometimes showing up, and and just everything that a normal human being encounters in some rather strange situations. The book has, I've seen all kinds of things. Many of my clients, I'd like to say even most of my clients, certainly the ones I've written about, I fell in love with a little bit, because, these are human experiences. And so whether you're dealing with a widow who was taken by a scam artist on Facebook, or whether you're dealing with someone with severe drug and alcohol problems, or whether you're dealing with someone who has never known love their entire lives, or whether you're dealing with a mercy killing, or, there's everything there. There's somebody who was trying to impersonate me.
Oh, my goodness.
There's some really interesting stories. And, and even the death of a child. And finding a way, for me to give my clients comfort and peace and the answers that they need. And it can be a lot of pressure, and I want to be a tool. I talk often to my clients and even on some of these shows that every day I begin my day asking God to let me be a channel of love and light in this dark time. And that's my goal, and that's what, before I do any tarot card readings, I usually have a time of prayer and meditation. And even if it's very, very short, to just sort of tune in with that person. And that's my goal, to give them the message that they most need to hear. And sometimes they don't want to hear it, by the way. Sometimes it's an uncomfortable message.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah, I get that with addicts a lot. A lot of times an addict wants me to fix their lives, but they don't want to give up their addiction. And it's like,
doesn't work that way. Yeah, it can be challenging, I'm sure. Well, we want to get into the actual transformational aspect of tarot, because it's so powerful. And as we were discussing before we got on the air, that it's a lot of things that you never hear about from other readers or read about in their books. But first, I see we have a question from someone in the audience. So let me see what they would like to know. This is from this person's from area code 216. So hang on a second. Hi, you're live on the air. What's your name? Hello? Okay. We're going to put you back on hold. Okay.
Oh, well.
we can return and see if they got back to their phone in time, but before we end the show. But anyways, so yeah, let's talk a little bit, if you don't mind, about the transformational aspect of working with these cards. What can happen?
Yeah. Well, so, it's funny that when you were giving me my little bio there, my introduction, that CBS Radio calls me St. Louis's #1 fortune teller, and I kind of cringe at that just a little bit because tarot is so much more than fortune telling. Yeah. But of course, people think that it's only fortune telling, unless a lot of people misunderstand tarot and think that I'm summoning demons or working with a Ouija board or something.
Right.
There can be lots of misunderstandings around it. But tarot is a transformational tool. And the psychologist Carl Jung used it with his patients, and and Jung called it the process of individuation. You may have read about Joseph Campbell and his hero's journey, and the idea is that everyone has these stages in life in their development on the way to self-actualization. Now, some people never get there. Some people just decide, yep, this is good enough. I'm going to hang around 2 or 3 and never make it to 21.
Right.
But
exactly.
But there are, from the Fool card, number 0, to the World card, number 21, there are all of these stages. And some of them are around real basic life things like parenting and going to work and getting educated, finding your talents, falling in love, getting older, and then we have crisis points. Almost everybody, it's pretty hard to avoid some kind of trauma. It doesn't matter if you're a Vanderbilt or living under a bridge. You're going to have trauma in your life. Some people have more than others, of course. We all process it differently, but there's a tarot card for all of these things. And so when I'm reading, your path, if I'm reading for you, Patricia, and I put some cards down, and it's going to reflect kind of your mindset currently, where you're headed, where you've come from. We can get guidance for you if you wanted advice on something. If we see something coming up that you don't like, it's an opportunity to do it differently. It's a heads up. But I believe that, I'm reading what you already know on a higher subconscious level, and I'm mirroring it back to you.
Wonderful.
Do you find that one deck is better than another to read? Because there's so many out there today. I know way back in the beginning with the Trio deck, the Right Raider, and there's so much out there today, it gets frustrating. And others have asked me about it, and I really don't know how to invest the information to them other than say what draws you to a specific thing. Other than that, how do they choose?
Well, I do believe that, if you want to learn tarot, start with a Rider-Waite deck or what I prefer, just a variation of that called the Universal Waite, which I just like the coloring better, honestly. But that deck was made by the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn at the turn of the century. It was designed in perfect alignment. Well, I can't say perfect, and I could talk about that, but that'll take 20 minutes we don't need. But it was designed in alignment with the Kabbalah. So they matched it up to the Kabbalah Tree of Life, and they incorporated all of these symbols and everything, just as I mentioned earlier. And so that is really the foundation that so many decks are modeled after. So other artists kind of have done their take on it, but if it's a Rider-Waite based deck, it's pretty easy to read from if you're familiar with the Rider-Waite. Now, if you are, I collect many, I don't even know how many hundreds of decks I have, but but there are just some that are just for artistic value, and sometimes they've gone off in other directions and have more cards than the 78 cards, or fewer cards than the 78 cards in the traditional deck. Some decks are, very closely. They have all the major symbolism of the Rider-Waite, and then others have just a few kind of key symbols. So it sort of just depends. But I say the Rider-Waite or Universal Weight is the very best to learn from. And then when you're comfortable with that, then you can pick up another deck. And what I find a lot when I'm reading for my clients is I may be using a different deck, but I remember the Rider-Waite card, and I say, let me show you that card over here because it illustrates it exactly right. And one of my favorites to do that with is the Nine of Swords, because the Nine of Swords is such a sad-looking card with this woman, and she's crying in her bedroom in the dark, and there are these 9 swords behind her. But I love to point out that none of those swords are attacking her, and that swords in the tarot are our thoughts. Like we say, someone is sharp, So she's turned away from her thoughts. She doesn't want to look at what's right there in front of her. And you'll see on the picture that she's actually warm and cozy in a bed. She even has a comforter. So, the idea of that card, while it can look very scary, it's really saying your material world is fine, but you're in denial. You're repressing something. And so that's an example of the artist Pamela Coleman Smith, who worked with Rider and Rider-Waite to do this. It's just exactly right. And I can look at many other depictions of Nine of Swords, and some of them are wonderful, but they're not that. And that card and that symbolism just embodies to me everything I want my clients to know, that it's not as terrible as it seems, and you're bringing it on yourself because you're not facing your hard stuff. And, it kind of comes down to that.
That's right.
So, yeah, it's a beautiful deck.
So tell us some of your experiences with your clients, because obviously through all these years, you've read for all kinds of people. And tell us some of the ones that obviously don't reveal their names, but some of the readings that stand out to you.
Well, that's what my whole book is the readings that stand out to me. So, after I tell my first story about myself and how I came around here, the chapter 1, the Magician card, is about, the magician in reverse in the tarot deck is the con artist or the trickster. And this is about a lonely widow who fell in love with a scam artist on Facebook. And, I did my very best to protect her to the point that she was becoming angry with me. And he ended up taking quite her retirement pretty much. But I don't want to give it all away. But that's an example of one story in there. The next story I have around the High Priestess is a story of back in the days of MySpace. I used to be in a poetry group on MySpace, and I got to be very close with a group of poets, and we had these MySpace parties around the United States where we would all get on a plane and meet up somewhere, and we loved each other. we were tight, and but it was a party, and some of these people were heavy partiers, and so the High Priestess is about intuition and just solely operating on that level. And I learned through working with some of these heavy partiers, first of all, really how to channel my readings, but also there's one scene where this drunk guy grabs my tarot cards and says, "Now I'm going to give you a reading," and he puts some cards down very haphazardly, but he gave me a decent reading, and that was a real lesson in intuition. That it isn't about knowing all the facts about what this card means and that card means. He was riffing off the pictures, and he was because he was drunk, he didn't have any opinions. He didn't care if he came off wrong, and he was open. He was totally open. So that was fun. Further into the book, I have around the death card, I have a visit to a nursing home, and boy. Usually the death card does not represent death. Usually it's a card of transformation and saying the old life is behind you, but we're in a whole new life. However, I wrote it different in this. I actually made it about death because I was reading for the residents of this nursing home who were in there for the rest of their days, and it was really a mix of emotions for me, and in some cases I became very attached to some of these people, and in some cases I was like, oh my gosh, this person's crazy, get me away, and as I said, you're going to see me kind of process everything with boundaries and all the feelings, anger and love and sadness, and because that's me. I'm very empathic. Some of the other stories, I've got a gambling addict who was in just some big trouble financially with the casinos. I had somebody, as I had said, who did a mercy killing. Which I did read that story, which is up on YouTube. That story and a story around the lover's card I read at my book release party, and you can find them on YouTube and hear and see me reading them. And that might be fun if you want to get a sample of what this book feels like and what some of these stories are about. Just everything in between. I've got what I would call a frenemy, somebody who was like real sweet and polite, but kind of a bitch, and very very confrontational. I'm sorry, was I not allowed to say that? Is that
you
a
can
bad
say
word?
It's fine.
Okay.
No, it's fine.
Yeah, I think I heard that the FCC, I don't know if you have FCC rules, but I think I heard you can say that now.
Yes,
but,
you definitely can say it on our show, no problem. But
you have to go with
now, how about for you, though? Have the cards saved your life? Have they gotten you to look at something you weren't looking at before that could have been disastrous for you, or health-wise could have been dangerous?
I could give you a couple instances. I mean, two things are coming to mind. The shortest story I'll tell first, and that is that in 2001, I was an executive. I was a marketing executive, and I had a business trip in New York City. I was leaving on September 10th, 2001, and I pulled a card, and I said, what's my trip going to be like? And I pulled the Tower, which, if you've seen the Tower, is one of the most frightening tarot cards.
Nice.
And I said to myself, great, I'm going to have a fight with my boss, because I was having some tenuous kind of relations with my boss. And so I got on the airplane and I flew into town. And on September 11th in downtown Manhattan, we made our way to the conference room. And about halfway through our conference meeting, someone tapped on the door and said, you're going to want to look out the window. A plane's just hit the World Trade Center. And that was quite the shock. And we were stuck for days, and needless to say, it was a terrible time, as the Tower is, The Tower is sudden and shocking and something to be feared. But my real story around the tarot, I would say, happened in graduate school, because when I was in my poetry class studying the work of Sylvia Plath, who I always felt a kinship with, ever since I was about 16 when I read The Bell Jar. But as an adult, and when I became a poet, I really fell in love with her poetry. Like The Bell Jar, fine, great novel, but it's her poetry that speaks to me. And when I was looking at these poems in her book Ariel, I said to my professor, Dr. Schreiner, what's with all the tarot symbolism? I can't find anything about it. And he said, what are you talking about? And I said, look, this is, the Empress. This is the Emperor. This is clearly, the Lovers. This is clearly the Hermit. And I'm pointing out all of this stuff in Plath's poems. And he looked at me like I was crazy, and he goes, I've never heard anything about this. And he goes, I want this to be your semester end project. And I said, okay. And then it became my life's work. So what I found out was that you had to be both a tarot card reader and a Sylvia Plath scholar to know what her poems really do. And that she, I don't know if you know anything at all about Plath. She's quite famous. Gwyneth Paltrow starred in a movie called Sylvia about her, but she's famous for her suicide and her drama.
Right.
And she was very beautiful, and she had a very gorgeous husband who was a real philanderer, and there was just all of this drama around them. Well, when you focus on that, you're missing her genius. And it really, for whatever reason, I was called to find this. And I'm the first person, the only person, to find this. It's been over 50 years since she's been dead. I was born in 1963, the year she died. I was born 9 months after she died. I do not believe I am her reincarnated, although I do believe we're all one. I do believe she helps me, and I have heard her in an auditory way. A couple times in critical moments where I was almost going to give up on the work, and she wouldn't let me. But
you're going to finish this.
But
did she have a close friend when she was alive?
Oh,
a close girlfriend.
She had some, but not really so much girlfriends. She worshipped her husband, and he was deeply into the occult and mysticism, and he taught her everything he knew. And this is all documented, and his work has been widely studied for occult, mystical influences. But for some reason, just being a female, they've held her to her drama, and they've never looked at her work in this light, and it's crazy. But I am so blessed, and I have found so much, and so my first 3 books are all about this, and then I have another book coming out with Destiny Books in May 2024 called The Occult Sylvia Plath, and I think that with this really great publisher that I have right now, I think this is really going to get some attention in the way that my earlier books did, and my first was a university press that published Fixed Stars Govern a Life, Decoding Sylvia Plath, and then I have 2 smaller press editions after that. But I am really excited that the world is going to see that there's a lot more to Plath than anybody has realized. That it's 15 years of archival research, and if I've gotten so many signs that I'm on path, and in May of 2021, I was even bestowed, I have to say it like that because it just feels like such a gift, a hermetic caduceus, which is basically a magic wand that Sylvia Plath herself carved out of wood in summer camp when she was 15 years old, and it's got her initials in it and everything, and I'm sure it's worth a fortune because her tarot cards were auctioned off in 2020 for over $200,000, and she didn't make those. Yeah, so can you imagine something that she's made? So
magic wand from her.
Yeah, a family friend who is pretty elderly now wanted the right person to have it, and he wanted somebody who appreciated her mysticism, and here I am. And a friend of a friend connected us, and such a blessing. So it is kept in a safe, of course, but I have pictures of it on Instagram and my Twitter and my Facebook, and if anybody wanted to see it, certainly they could reach out to me, and I could either send pictures or make an appointment or something. But it's pretty incredible, and I just feel like the luckiest person in the world that she picked me.
Oh, wonderful!
Gosh, what? This is an amazing story, and a big part of your life, obviously. I think that next book that you're about to have published would be an even better movie about her and the depth of who she was.
Yeah, sure.
Because as you're talking about her, I'm getting a sense of how dramatic even her, just the way that she spoke. So it would be easy for people to get caught up in that, and especially at that time, and see her as somewhat of a drama queen, or she should have been an actress kind of thing. But here she had all of this in-depth knowledge that she was able to use in her own way. And oh my gosh, what a great movie would be.
She made me a better tarot card reader. I mean, my work with Plath and her poems, and to learn what a poem could do, and that she was able to embed a minimum of 6 different meanings in one set of words, depending on if you were looking through the lens of tarot or Kabbalah or alchemy or mythology or arts and humanities or just history. I mean, she made her words do this sextuple duty. I've never seen anything like it in anyone else's poetry, and I've studied a lot of poetry. I'm a poet myself, and I guess that's all a part of it. But I feel like all of the tarot of the earlier decades, from my teens, 20s, 30s, and part of my 40s, were my training ground to open up the Plath work, which was the latter part of my 40s and 50s. And so now here I am, looking 60 years old in the eye. I'll be 60 on Sunday. And I just feel like it's all just this beautiful climax. And I'm very excited for how the world's going to take this. And I've had some really great early reviews. And so maybe you'll have me back to talk about that when that book comes
Of course
out.
we will. Are you kidding me? We have to have you back to talk about this. Now, when is this book going to be coming out?
This is May 2024. And I'm recording the audio book for it now. Yeah.
Oh,
well, we'll see you in May.
Fantastic. We will see you then. Absolutely. I'm going to definitely be talking to Gail about this. That is so exciting. And your work, I mean, it just feels like it's so momentous. It's like something so powerful is going to be in front of the world with this book.
Yeah, she chose me. And when you're called, when you have a calling, you just got to respond,
Yes.
In some ways, some people think, my God, Julia, you never stop. And don't you want to have a normal vacation instead of going to speak to universities or, but it's just in me. It's what I have to do. And I love it.
Yeah.
It shows.
Meant to be.
It's wonderful.
Yes. It's so exciting to hear what you're doing. Oh, my goodness. And who's your publisher for this book?
So both books is Destiny Books, which is a subsidiary of Inner Traditions. And even that was, just this sort of mystical blessing, because right around COVID, when I got the idea of putting tarot life lessons together from my journals, I got a fan letter on Instagram from a writer, Tamra Lucid, who told me she'd been reading my Plath work and she loved it. And she just couldn't believe that people hadn't found it yet. And we started to get friendly, chatting back and forth. And she asked if I had any other projects, and I told her that I was doing this tarot book. And she said, why don't you, she said, I'm going to give you an introduction to this editor I know. I think it might be perfect. And so she introduced me to John Graham over at Inner Traditions. And he snatched it up in felt like minutes. Like, it was like he read it almost right away. And next thing I had a book contract. And then they wanted to talk to me about this Plath work. And I sent that over, and they accepted that. So, I mean, I have never felt more in alignment. And this was all the same time, roughly. I mean, within the same year, I should say within a year's time, that I got the Hermetic Caduceus. And, it was
oh, my
like
gosh.
Constant affirmations.
Yes.
Really nice.
Right.
Wonderful.
One gift after another. How inspiring.
Yeah.
Yeah, and John has good instincts for good books, so I'm not surprised that he picked up on yours.
I've had the best experience with the Inner Traditions gang. I mean, my first publication with a university press, which shall go unnamed. I mean, anyone could look it up if they wanted to. But, you have this idea with a university that you're going to get this really attentive grad student who maybe wants to make a name for themselves and work really hard. But the reality is that you've got this class of undergraduates who don't know what they're doing. They're only there for 6 months. Half of them don't care at all. They just want to get the credit and get out of there. They, as soon as they're done with their semester, they're gone, and a new bunch of clueless people who don't know anything about it takes over. And so things were getting lost, and, even to the point that I don't want to put my energy into complaining about them, but I did write about it. There's an article on Medium called "How to Know If You Have a Bad Publisher." That I wrote.
Good.
And
you could warn the rest of us.
I think it's 10 signs that you have a bad publisher. I think that's what I called it. But if you look me up, Julia Gordon-Bramer over on Medium, you can read it and see all my horror stories with them.
Okay. Oh, my goodness. Oh, that's awful. Well, you survived it. That's the important part. But now you have Inner Traditions, and they are very, very good.
Yes. What does Nietzsche say? What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right?
Yeah, it does. Let me ask you a question, Julia, about the major arcana cards. Now, can people use tarot cards to transform themselves just by meditating on them? So say they pull a card from the major arcana and they meditate on that card. Can people actually have positive changes happen from that?
I think so. And an example of my own that I'll give you there, when I was in my first, the divorce from my first husband, that was the worst time of my life. I mean, I think divorces are the worst time of anybody's life. It really makes you raw, and it's very painful. And I honestly wasn't sure I was going to survive it. I was a single mom making about $20,000 with no child support and a violent, abusive ex, and it was pretty rough. And I took out my strength card, which, if you look at the strength card, it's this beautiful woman, and she's taming a lion. And I like to say she tames the beast, and she does it not with brutality, but she does it with love and gentleness. And I put that strength card under my pillow every night, and I would look at it before I went to bed. And it's not that I thought it was a talisman that was going to give me strength so much as I wanted to keep my mind on it and to know that I embodied it, and that, again, as a child of God, it's a part of me. God's a part of me. I've got this. And sometimes I forget. And in the scariest times, I was forgetting. So it was a reminder. So every card has wonderful wisdom that you could meditate on. And every card has mythological stories, and mythology's got a ton of wisdom in it too. I mean, all of our complexes, like, our psychiatric complexes. They're all named after mythological characters and situations, Electra complex, Oedipal, all
right.
of that. But so there's a lot of information in there that you could meditate on. I am not a believer that they are magical in and of themselves, that they can change us like without us doing anything. I think the magic is really in us and our spirit and our mindset, and what we put our mind on grows. And so we want to grow the good, and we want to, learn and heal. And the cards can be an excellent tool for that. But, I don't think if you put a card in your pocket, it's going to fix you in any way. If that were true, it would have been discovered a long time ago.
And everybody would be doing it. No, I agree with you. I think that's absolutely true. What I think is also important about tarot cards and the symbolism is, like you said, keeping your mind focused on the strength. You're in a place in your life where you really needed the strength to pull out of it and to get on with your life in a better way. I think the cards also help to create those pathways in your mind, because we all have those pathways that are just like a hamster wheel, and it's very hard to break that. Yeah. But I do think that tarot cards with their powerful symbolism can help us with that. So it creates those new tracks that can get laid down in the brain and go.
Yeah, it can just show you a different way to do it, or a different way to think about something. And exactly.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so that's where I find it helpful, because sometimes words don't cut it. Words can seem to bring us back to the same wheel that we just are trying so desperately to get off. So, and the pictures
people ask
mean a lot.
Yeah, and people ask me all the time. They say, could you just give a psychic reading without the tarot cards? And I think I probably could, but I like the cards because of those pictures, because you can read it with me that way. And you can see, we all learn differently, and some people are better audibly, and some people are better with pictures, and, and it's both, and it's more experiential. And I can, like I was telling you about that Nine of Swords, that lady sitting crying in the dark room, I can show that and break it down in front of my client, and then they're sort of like, oh, right, and it makes a kind of a sense that, maybe if I just said, you're repressing, that wouldn't feel the same, and it might not even ring true. Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You might get that defiance rather than an understanding. Yes.
Sure.
Yeah, that's right. So it makes a big difference. Well, Julia, tell everybody how they can get in touch with you, because I have a lot of people texting me asking that question because they want a reading from you.
Great. Well, they can call or text me at 314-517-0158. They can check out my website, which I have to warn you is under construction right now. So, but it's got like a functional, it's kind of half there, but it isn't totally updated yet. But that is my name, JuliaGordonBramer.com. There's no hyphen, there's no periods. GORDON, B as in boy, RAM as in Mary, ER.com.
Terrific.
Right.
And your book is something everybody should get and read all these wonderful stories. So everybody,
thank you.
Go find that book. It'd be a great Christmas present or Hanukkah present or any kind of present.
Yeah. I'm
Terrific.
getting some nice reviews on Amazon, so and Goodreads, so you can read a little bit on the reviews of what some of the readers are saying.
Oh, well, that's great. And again, the name of the book is Tarot Life Lessons. So, Julia, thank you so much for joining us this evening. This has been a great conversation. Nice to meet you.
It was a pleasure.
Of course, we're going to have you back to hear about Sylvia Plath and all of the wondrous things that she created. And thank God that you found them and you're bringing them back to us.
Wonderful.
Awesome. Well, Thank you. Well, happy Thanksgiving. Happy moving into the sign of Sagittarius, which is my sign. And and I hope everyone has a wonderful holiday season.
Absolutely. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Thank you. And we'll be back next week, everybody, with another great show. And until then, we'll see you on the Blue Highway. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thanks for listening. Tune in next week for another radio adventure with Supernatural